So I teach at Northern Kentucky University, which is no, I graduated from the University of Kentucky, which is an hour and 15 minutes south of where I teach right now.
Nice.
But I grew up in Kentucky.
Nice.
So from 94, I've been in Kentucky.
Nice. 94.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
man.
Do you remember 94? Yeah.
I was 3, so maybe I remember more than you do, Hilal. That's quite interesting because I mean, myself and Hilal, like we went into some of your so basically your CV.
Yeah.
And we've seen
you
some
did
of
your
the,
research.
Yeah, a
right.
little bit. I mean, and we were actually impressed. And I was literally like asking Hilal, I was like, why is Professor Abdullah is not like highlighted? Because we've seen some of the achievement you've done, especially in Kentucky. And I think if you could just walk us through maybe. Exactly, the publications. So if you could just walk us through basically your journey, maybe in 94, how did it kick off? And then, how did you end up to being a professor in the University of Kentucky?
Well, first of all, I'm humbled that you went and did your research. As professors, that's really what we aim for, is for people to find us and to see the work that we're doing.
Yeah.
A lot of what we do happens in the background, and not enough people really seek our expertise. We have our own little circle of people that we share our knowledge with. And from society's perspective, and I hear that a lot more in Oman than I hear it elsewhere, but it still happens in the US, for instance. They assume that what professors know are not applicable to private industry or real world. He's just an academic. You hear that often, right? But this knowledge that people are using came from academics, right?
Exactly.
So a lot of what I do is focused on how to make this economic theory relatable to people's decision making on an everyday basis. And I do consulting. I do a lot of consulting outside of academia with governments, private industry. I own an entrepreneurship, innovation, and economic insight company, consulting company called EI District. But as far as my journey, I mean, where do you want to start? Born in Muscat.
Exactly, yeah, maybe with that.
Born in Muscat. Really, I was raised in the States because my parents were lucky enough to receive scholarships from Oman to study in the U.S. They did their undergraduate. And then they did their graduate master's degree. And then we came to Oman. I was in 3rd grade at that time, and I went to Muscat Private School, what was called Muscat Private School then, now Muscat International School. And then in 92, 93 was the first year Sahwa opened. So I was one of the people that started Sahwa School.
Nice.
And then my mom got an opportunity to go do her PhD at the University of Louisville in 94.
Nice.
And that's why we left to go to the States. And I think I was 13 when we left. My mom finished her PhD and returned. But I had this option, right? So it was presented. My mom knew her program was 3 years. But high school is 4 years in the States. So I had the option of doing 3 years and then coming back here and then having to do Thanawiyya Amma here, which most likely I would have fallen behind because I hadn't had the Arabi or Islamic studies for 3 years. So the decision I made was to double up. So I did 2 years instead of 1.
1 year.
So at 16, I graduated from high school. And I started at the University of Louisville. Aoun was with me. So he was in high school and I was in college. I would go to college and then I'd pick him up from high school. It was just the two of us. Did my undergraduate and started off as chemical engineering major. So I did the Omani track. Everybody has to be an engineer.
Exactly,
right?
Exactly, that's the case.
So I did 3 years of chemical engineering and then I took an econ class. I'm like, whoa, this is using math. But it applies it to human behavior.
Exactly.
this is exactly what I enjoy. I love the math, and that's why I was told to go into engineering.
Yeah.
But now we're bringing the human aspect to it. And I switched. So I did 5 years of undergraduate at the University of Louisville, did a master's right after it. And then you will enjoy this, given your background. I graduated, and I had the option to come to Oman or try out the work experience from in America. And what ended up happening is it was the mortgage like boom, housing boom.
Yeah.
So everybody was making money. It was good times. So much learning. I stayed and I worked in the mortgage industry.
Nice.
And then 2006, I did my PhD, and then
nice.
I applied to positions here, but the opportunities were
better.
I had more. I wouldn't say, but I had more opportunities.
Okay.
To be more honest, in the States, and I just pursued it and taken every day by day, and
nice.
We're here right now.
Such an interesting story.
Thank you. Long-winded, but I appreciate you listening to it.
So basically, one of the conversation I was having with my friend Hilal is that usually in this particular podcast, we was like, we want to bring people who are expertise in specific topics. And for economics, that was a very tough one for us, because most of the people that we're basically know, they are maybe not available most of the time, or they like occupied, especially with the current situation going on in Oman. You could feel like everyone is literally just caught up doing something.
Yes.
An interesting component that we've been noticing in the society recently, especially when there was a lot of, I'd say during the pandemic, period.
Yes.
There was a lot of data coming in from the governmental entities, publications of reporting of, for example, the general debt, the deficit, the returns of a specific company and what have you. And it's a very funny thing about the society here with us, because everyone becomes a specialist in a specific topic when there is a topic that is hot.
Yes.
If there is basically a weather condition going on, everyone becomes a weatherman.
Person,
exactly. Yeah. If there is an economic situation going on, everyone becomes an economist.
Yeah.
So when I was talking to Hilal, he was like, and we were talking about a very interesting topic. We were talking about the religious aspect, because we have a lot of religious debates and what have you.
Yeah.
And I used to fall in this myself, for example, and that is running into interpretation about specific, for example, things that is religion related.
Yeah.
And Hilal told me one thing. He was like, listen, Hassam, when you're sick, who do you consult? I'm like, when I'm sick, I consult a doctor.
Yeah.
He's like, it's the same situation. So when you're basically seeking guidance in a religious matter, you have to consult a religious individual, because sometimes we try to explain things on our own kind of what fits for us.
Yeah.
But these are the individuals who basically put down the time, who their entire life was basically dedicated for it.
Yeah.
And that basically applies to everything. So now for economics, whereas like we have to bring someone who's basically specialized in this, and plenty of questions that we're having, myself and Hilal. First of all, oil dropped to minus $37 a barrel.
Yes.
How is that possible?
So before I answer that, let me go back to a very important point that you point out.
Sure.
And that's, everybody is an expert in today's society, and it's I think there's a difference between everybody having an opinion and everybody being an expert.
Yeah.
I think everybody has an opinion. Not everybody's an expert. So I applaud you for seeking out the expert advice.
Yeah.
The problem with economics is it's a little bit even more complicated.
Yeah.
Because economics is real life. It's what you and
Exactly.
I go through.
Exactly.
So because we both, we all of us go through economic events and economic situations, we all believe that the view of economics that we have is the true economics.
Yeah.
Whereas there are economic theories that tell us what will happen overall. Just because something happens to you doesn't mean it happens to everybody.
Yeah.
And that's been my role in life since I've gotten actually the reason I went to go get my PhD is because during the mortgage industry, during the housing boom, I noticed a lot of people making mistakes that, textbook theory would say You shouldn't do what you're doing. But people were taking on that action. So I said, what can we do to inform people? And so I run the Center for Economic Education at Northern Kentucky University, and our goal is to educate K through 65 on economics, so they know how to make better decisions in their everyday life. To answer your question about the minus 37, right? So when you buy oil, the problem with oil is you have to store it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? It's not, it's a tangible good.
Exactly.
Because supply was so high, there was no storage facilities.
Yeah.
People that are trying to get rid of oil could not sell it because they could not cover, nobody wanted to pay for the storage.
Exactly.
So to get rid of the inventory, they said, we'll pay for your storage.
Okay.
So that the $37 a barrel was to pay for you to get it off my hands and store it.
Exactly. So is this, you could say, first time that happened in the history of, history of mankind, basically? Because, I mean, during my, 29 years of existence, I've never witnessed this. Maybe it happened, but I wasn't aware of it. So is this a first?
So, I should know the answer to that as a definite. I plotted the data when we got to negative 37. I don't recall if we ever went below zero in the past. Actually, I think the lowest it was in the past in real terms was about $8. So yes, it's never been, based on my knowledge, never been negative. So yes, it's a phenomenon. It's just many different events that happen at once.
Exactly.
That created the situation.
I mean, this COVID situation is literally just making it hard by the day. Like, especially here locally. I know a lot of entrepreneurs actually. A couple of them at least. They run out of business. Because of the situation. Maybe here the question could be, is that. Is there any kind of preparation for such pandemics, whether it's within our local context or in a global level? Because this is, I think, the first pandemic that we've witnessed heavily. So have you ever, I don't know, during your basically lifetime, have you ever kind of came into encounter that such a pandemic that has happened where countries actually usually prepare for these before?
So technically you can't prepare for what we experience. There's no way anybody could have expected that, right? However, there are things that we could look at and think, what would economic theory say in this situation, or what would the proposal be? Okay, so economies have ups and downs. Usually when you have a downturn, you're in a recession, similar to a decrease in economic activity. Government's role there is to bail out, right? So fiscal policy, monetary policy. The severity of the pandemic doesn't allow for that, right? So we have an issue because how much do you give, right? How much do you bail out? It's unknown. How long does this last?
Exactly.
So my proposal has been, and always will be, is this is not an economic issue. This is a health issue.
Okay.
Solve the health issue, and then as economists, we know how to solve downturns.
Exactly.
We don't know how to solve health, so I'm going to defer to the health individuals.
Interesting.
Right? But the issue is still there because we are still behind the 8 ball with respect to the health issue. We're seeing, in the United States. In the United States, they decided to, use the trickle down, like, hey, we'll impose some restrictions, but not too many. And then the whole debate between health and economy happened. It was really a non-debate. Get the health together.
Exactly.
We know how to get out of recessions. We've done it.
We've done it before.
And recessions happen. Health pandemics don't happen. So let's listen to the scientists.
So
is this what is called moral economy?
Moral? I haven't heard moral economy.
Basically, I've read something about, like, most of the governments went to the direction of taking care of the people, like doing such things. Basically the same concept that you talked about now. So
the moral aspect is people try to create a spectrum, right? Whenever you have an economic policy or economic situation like this, you're going to have pros and cons, right?
Yeah.
You're going to have people for, people against. And it became more of a tension than I believe it should have been, right? So in this situation, the economic policy would be, you have a downturn, you bail out. You bail out businesses.
Exactly.
The fiscal policy approach here is to give money out.
Exactly.
So people...
Helicopter money?
What?
Helicopter money.
You just have to give them money.
Yeah, you
right?
just... Yeah,
so where does it come from? And the helicopter here is it falls from the sky, right? Yes. And the problem is, this is a situation where governments go into debt, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people are against governments going into debt. The reality of it is, during downturns, governments go through debt.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
During expansions, when the economy gets better, then pay off your debt. Right? It's kind of like a personal finance, and you all had a great personal finance podcast here.
Yeah.
But your income is technically volatile. One day you could work, one day you can't work, right? But you still have to live.
Yeah.
So days that you don't have money, you kind of go into your credit cards or your debt.
Yeah.
And then when you make the money, you pay it back.
Yeah. One interesting thing that you just touch upon now is basically the bailout that happened. Across different countries. If we take the U.S. as an example, they basically, how much was it? Just around 2 trillion, I think.
I think so. Yeah, that
exactly.
was 600 to 1,200 per person.
Exactly. Such an approach. Do you think that is a kind of a proper approach for such a situation? Because I think we've seen it happening in the U.S. We've seen it happening in some European countries doing the same thing. Maybe not as when it comes to scale as much as the U.S. Maybe because of their economy, but like as an approach to basically fight such a pandemic. Is that an approach that is, you could say, appropriate in solving?
It should have been more.
More than.
It should have been more than that.
Interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
GDP decreased by 10% for the quarter.
Yeah.
Right. Unemployment rate increased to 30%.
Wow.
Right. You needed that bailout.
Exactly.
You needed to smooth consumption. And right now, September 1, the funds dry up. Yeah. So what we're going to see in the U.S., and people haven't returned to work at the rate that they were, we're going to see the consequence of that if there's not another bailout.
Yeah.
Right. Now, the benefit of the U.S. compared to what the U.S. has a capability of doing versus Oman is they have unlimited access to debt markets.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And here we're capped with our access to debt markets.
Exactly.
So that's where the issue comes in.
And that is because of our rating issue now with the credit rating that we have.
Their credit rating is a bit of a difficult spot.
Yeah.
Although I think all the checks are being put into place. So the way credit ratings work is it's lagged indication.
Yeah.
Right? It tells you what has happened, doesn't really necessarily tell you what's going to happen in the future.
Yeah.
So they base it on previous data.
Yeah.
Whereas I think if you base our numbers on future data, I think it looks good. Are there some things that need to be tweaked? Yeah, but it looks really good.
Yeah. This is there is one component that we keep basically hearing about constantly. I think two terms I would say that we keep hearing about, and this is where the people basically take these terminologies and they try to kind of throw their own interpretation. And that is the general debt and basically the deficit.
Yes.
So I really like in this for these specific two components, I think these are going to be closest to the people.
Yeah.
Like if you could first of all like break it down as you were breaking it to a child.
Yeah.
Basically, what is the general debt and what is the deficit, and basically maybe go through the kind of cycle that we're experiencing in the country year by year. It's just a constant cycle going on.
So not to get technical, right? I'll try to explain this in different ways because I believe it's important to explain in different ways. The audiences hear different things.
Yeah.
So one's a stock, the other one's a flow, right?
Okay.
So your deficit is how short are you this month?
Okay.
Right?
Nice.
The accumulation of those deficits is your debt. Right?
Yeah.
So if you continuously have deficits, then your debt is increasing.
Yeah.
You could have a deficit today and then next month have a surplus.
Yeah.
And therefore you pay off some of your debt.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So the deficit is what's happening. The debt is how much of it is left.
Exactly.
Right? So,
I've been having a conversation with a brother of mine, actually.
Okay.
Where he forwarded for me a WhatsApp message of one reporting where there was, I think, a decrease in our spending quarter-wise, I think by 90% because of the cut down and, the cost cutting that was implemented.
Yeah.
And he was basically telling me, oh, that's it, the problem solved. Like we're saved and that's it. I think Oman is going in the right way.
Yeah.
I was like, yes, well, we are going in the right way, but the problem is not solved. It's just a comparison between 2 quarters, how much basically we cut down or how much our spending basically in this quarter, compared to the last year. I gave him this example, and maybe you can correct me if I was wrong. If I was wrong in this example, I was like, okay, here is the situation that we're experiencing. Let's assume you're basically an individual who gets a salary of, for example, 1,000 Omani riyals.
Okay.
Okay. You have a rent. You basically live in an apartment or a house. You have a rent that you pay for example, 500 riyals.
Okay.
You have your, your spending, general spending, whatever it is, basically that is cost you 400 riyals. So there is 100 riyal left. So, and then you have also projects. Businesses that you're basically decided to invest. And that business costs you per month, say, for example, 400 riyals.
Yeah.
So you're basically you're short. Like your expenditure or your expenses is more than basically your income.
Yeah.
The way that you can basically use, or one of the way that you could use to basically cover that kind of shortage is that you go and you cover it with debt.
Yeah.
So you go, for example, into banks and you take debt. And that is basically how the country does it, is basically by getting the debt. So that is the situation. Now, every month, you're still basically in the same situation because you keep try to pay. First of all, your expenses are high.
Yeah.
Like that is the situation that is going. Your expenses are high, your rent is high, your home spendings are over 400 Omani riyals, so that is high. And then you have projects that you have basically to fund in order for them to be completed. So you have to keep borrowing money every single month in order for you to cover. Yeah. Whether you want to pay back some of the money that you borrowed or basically you want to just fund your situation. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, here is the situation that you're basically, or some of the solutions that you could introduce. Cost cutting. How do you do cost cutting? I don't know. First of all, your expenditure is 400 riyals. Try to reduce that. Reducing that by tackling what is basically taking most of your budget for monthly wise in order for you to cut it. And I think that is special, similar to what the government is doing with the cost cutting strategies. Yeah. So that is I try to explain it in that sense because I know he's going through a same situation. Yeah. So would that kind of represent the current situation?
You did a good job of breaking it down. Yeah. Ultimately, what it is, for instance, just to use an example, we used to be 1,000 riyals over budget. Now we're 100 riyals over budget, right? Yeah. Yeah. So that's where the 90% decrease. We're still over budget. Yeah. But it still needs to be applauded. It's a good thing.
Exactly, of course.
Now, does it solve all problems is the question that you were trying to point out. Yeah. And this is where the importance of economic education, right? Because I got the same what's up message, right? Yeah. And everybody's like, oh, khalas, everything's good, right? Which it's an improvement, but we still have some things to tackle, right? And the other thing that we have to think about is we are in an economy that is mostly driven by government spending. Yeah. So if the government is cutting its spending, what's the trickle-down effect? Yeah. Right? And we have to be conscious about that because, sometimes we might want to cut the government spending, but if that means SMEs go out of business, is it better for us to still have a deficit and maintain the SMEs during this time? Yeah. And this is the trade-off, right? And a lot of time on these WhatsApp messages and social media, it is presented as one option is the option. Yeah, exactly. There's no perfect option, right? In economics, lesson 1 that I teach my students is life is about trade-offs. Everything has an opportunity cost. You're picking one over something else.
Exactly.
Right? You have to decide what's that over something else. And a lot of people only look at the benefit and don't look at the cost.
Yeah.
Or only look at the cost and they don't look at the benefit.
Exactly.
So that's not a complete analysis, and we have to really be careful about the entire equation.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. One component we keep, or one term also, another term that we keep hearing is basically the economy diversification.
Yeah.
I think this topic is being brought up as kind of the savior of our dependency on oil.
Yeah.
And I think there is a lot of actually effort that being put by the government in order for us to be able to expand our horizon when it comes to diversify our economy. However, at least this is my kind of observation.
Yes.
Basically, the public or people think when the government put down these kind of solution that we're trying to diversify the economy, people have the expectations that these are a short-term applicable kind of solutions.
True.
Which definitely that's not the case.
Yeah.
These are things that you need to build up. These are things that basically requires a lot of time for us. Which basically tells us that we still have a lot of dependency on oil for us as a country, from a revenue perspective.
Yeah.
Recently, what has been going on in the world, one component or one topic that I'm very interested in, and actually I have my concerns that is going to affect, for example, our dependency on oil, and that is EVs.
Yeah.
You could see that a lot of manufacturers, car manufacturers, they're basically having these mandates that are very short term. You could talk like within the next 2 to 5 years, where they want to shift completely to electric vehicles, and that is definitely going to affect the oil market. So I see ourselves definitely gonna undergo a very difficult challenge, trying to cope up with that. But my question would be, from your expertise and kind of observation, do you think that transition is going to kind of be on a fast pace, which is basically a lot of EVs going on the roads and a lot of EVs start more using electricity, and there is less demand basically on fossil fuels? Or this is something that kind of give us some kind of a chance for us to be able to kind of reach a little bit of comfort when it comes to diversify our revenues in this point?
I don't know how well this will go over, but oil is dead.
Yeah.
Oil is gone, right?
Yeah.
We're hanging on to it.
Yeah.
Some of us. I applaud the movement towards switching from oil and minerals to energy. That's a good move.
Yeah.
Because energy is still electricity, right?
Yeah.
EVs, we still need energy. Oil, I think, is gone. So as far as I see everybody. I see it in the States.
Exactly.
EVs are everywhere.
Yeah.
In the middle of the United States, it's not as much, but on the coast, it's free charging stations, and at least for right now, tax subsidies to move to electric vehicles. So it's a matter of time until we move entirely that way.
Do you think this is an opportunity kind of for maybe for us to start looking into some kind of investments into these kind of technologies, specifically in EVs?
Yeah.
There is a lot of companies. Tesla.
Yeah.
I think that is the name that comes in when it comes to EVs, because they led the kind of the market. They took the risk. They basically went all the way when it comes to putting capital, investing, and believing in it. Elon Musk is literally one of my favorite personalities. When it comes to entrepreneurship. But I've seen a lot of other attempts, or even some successful attempts actually, maybe from Chinese manufacturers, where they're actually trying to introduce some EV alternatives to fossil fuel cars. One company, I can't recall the name basically. First of all, one of the challenges is basically trying to reduce the cost of the cars, of these EVs, to be able to compete with fossil fuels. Recently, I've read a column about a Chinese company who has came up with a solution to basically reduce the cost of the cars. But this is a very creative solution, and I think maybe this is one component that other countries, including Oman, maybe start looking into. and that is to design specific cars that does not necessarily have high capacity when it comes to battery.
Yeah.
And these are cars basically for commute within dense cities. I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
London, for example.
Yeah.
So London, it's a very kind of, like a tight kind of city.
Yeah.
If you have a car, you don't necessarily need that long range, capacity for batteries. These Chinese manufacturers literally are able to sell these cars under, I think it was $12,000 US.
Yeah.
And that is, to me, is literally kind of a sweet spot, or like one component of the EV market that they decided that we're going to capture, because now you have this market that is basically not being looked at by anyone, where we could basically tackle it and kind of occupy that market. Because now literally I think it's about time for the market share for the EVs to be reshaped by so many companies. Yes, Tesla is basically leading it. You have Porsche now, introducing some of my favorite car was the Taycan.
Okay.
As said, you have also, some.
Could we add an image of that in the?
Of course, definitely. We're gonna add also the interior. So you have also like the companies like Faraday, for example. It's one company I was looking at. Lucid, one other company. Polestar actually introduced, which is, I think it's the luxurious brand of Volvo. They're separate. So it's not necessarily a question. I was just kind of driven by the enthusiasm on EVs as basically one component that maybe here even locally can be looked at.
So I will push back.
Go ahead.
All right.
Sure.
And I think the biggest issue with EVs is not the price point as much as it's the range anxiety.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So going smaller on the capacity, because if I'm in the streets of London and I'm stuck in traffic and my electricity gauge is going down, that would really worry me, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest. I've played with the idea of getting a EV, and the issue that I run into is sometimes I like to drive 150 miles each way, right? And thinking about the anxiety that might have, I'm like, no, I'll just wait until I know their ranges could be 300 or 400 miles. Because the other issue that we didn't discuss is the infrastructure to recharge, right?
Definitely.
And I think that's where we see room to enhance that. So if we're not going to increase the range, can we make it easier to find somewhere to charge? And can the charge be quicker? Right?
Exactly.
And right now in Oman, we don't have that infrastructure. And we need to invest in it. But if going back to the cost and benefits argument, right? If resources are limited and we could invest in something, electronic EVs is the last thing I'd recommend we invest in, right? What does Oman do well? What is, in economic terms, our comparative advantage? Our location, right?
Exactly.
Our location is amazing. So these investments that we're seeing towards logistics and setting up the hub, I think these are great ideas, right? Now we need to invest in developing the infrastructure around that. So education around these hubs. And if these hubs are going to exist, how do we attract multinational enterprises, right? Amazon should be in Oman.
Of course.
Should be, right? Now, how do we get Amazon here, right? And there's going to have to be some give and take. You're going to have to give up some things like maybe Omanization laws.
Exactly.
Right? Are we willing to do that? But we cannot just say, hey, we have an amazing infrastructure and find us, right? Come over. We have to market it and we have to be aggressive about it because the people around us, the countries around us are pitching the same idea.
Exactly.
Right? So what differentiates us? And the beauty of Oman is we technically have a higher education attainment, right? We have a well-educated labor force. And then we also have, you minimize the the opportunities of having to go within too far into the peninsula. You could just drop off your stuff and then move on. Yeah. So let's leverage that. Let's leverage our human capital as well. That's really where I see a lot of it.
Do you see that the logistic sector is going to be the leading sector here in Oman?
If I had to give consultation, I would consult on that. I would say that would be where I would invest my money right now. Yeah.
Logistics.
Yeah. Logistics and developing the M&Es around it, right? Because having the hub is not sufficient. You have to have the firms around it. So how do we get these firms into Daqam, into Muscat?
Exactly.
So
yeah, I think I'm definitely on board, especially when you talk about logistics. However, I still see that one of the main challenges that we're facing here in Oman is processes, and I think definitely this is going to be changing, especially after the recent royal decrees. I mean, huge efforts that has been done, and I think is going to be done. But I think a lot of the things that we've been hearing in the news, in the previous times, is that a lot of international companies are facing challenges when it comes to the processes. They're coming here basically for investments, and they're basically taking too long for them to, for example, getting approvals and getting kind of the license in order for them to operate. So I definitely think that maybe this is one component that the country should be focusing on in order for us to be able to attract investment from abroad.
That's a position I think we both share, right? Because if and not just even for the M&Es, for the domestic, right? So if you want to start a business, right? I ask this always of entrepreneurs, mainly because of my entrepreneurship company, right? I ask them, you want to start a business? Yeah. Okay. What's the process to start a business?
Nothing.
Nobody knows, right? These people that are operating don't know the business. Now, I don't know if it's the process is not transparent or people are not aware, right? So lesson number 2 in economics, information allows people to make better decisions, right? So let's give the youth the information. So we have these initiatives right now on how to start business, on the importance of entrepreneurship. And you have all these hackathons and ideation and all these exciting events, but no one is sitting down saying, okay, here are the steps to start a business. Right? And I think that's the important part, because what we see with a lot of entrepreneurs is they have these amazing ideas, and then they see the process to get started,
and they just don't,
and then they don't follow through. They get, and then they say, oh, it's the process. No, the process has always been there. You were just not informed of it.
See, one of the things, and this is like one solution that hopefully can get to the some of the people who can basically maybe look into it. Again, I was one of the people, because I myself had a couple of endeavors when it comes to entrepreneurship, trying to start a couple of businesses. So there was this one time I went to back then Ministry of Commerce, where you basically go to the one-stop shop, to go and finalize some of the documentations or whatever documents that you require. And there was basically, I think, like 4 tables, and those 4 tables, 2 of them who actually were basically operated. And you have not a huge number of people that are waiting, but like it's a good amount. And most of the things or the transactions that you wanted to do does not necessarily requires human intervention, I'd say. So while I was sitting there, I have this crazy idea, and hopefully someone takes it and can give me a call.
I think I know where you're going, and yes, it's a good idea. But go ahead.
So I was like, okay, why don't you have a table, like in the middle, like several tables? Say, for example, 4 tables. On those 4 tables, you have big screens. These big screens, basically, they have literally, you could choose whatever kind of transaction that you wanted to do. Let's, for example, say, myself and Hilal, we own a business. And, I was like, all right, Hilal, we've been doing good in the business, and I think I want to sell my share. You can go on with the business, and, I'm good with it. So I just want to sell my share and sign off the company. So usually the process, at least, used to be that you go to this individual, and there's a form of paper that you have to draft, and then you sign, and then you give him your ID, and he sees it and approves it, and that's it. It's done. I was like, this whole process can be done through this table. So you have this table. I want to sell shares. what do I have to have? I have to be present there.
Yeah.
I have to have my ID and my fingerprint.
Yeah.
So you have a fingerprint reader. You have basically your ID card, and like down in this table, there's like a printer, where it can basically, you know, give you like the new updated commercial registration with the new kind of updated terms.
Yeah.
So this solution can literally, at least this is one solution, can literally be, you know, plotted into within the, you know, the facility of the ministry, where there is literally no need for human intervention. Should have a very easy interface where you basically can just conduct this transaction. Should have a couple of employees, for example, that are sitting in an office, technical guys. If you have any technical issues, you can basically consult them. This was one of the solutions, which is, this could refer back to one of the at least current initiatives that being done by the government, which is transformation into digital, government.
And I love all the moves that are happening. They're indicative that we're heading that way, right? When it comes to entrepreneurship, just go back to the basics of it, or anything, you want to minimize the administrative burden.
Exactly. Yeah.
And to do that, you really need to think about the user experience. We talk about that to, you know, entrepreneurs. Hey, how's your customer experiencing this? But even when it comes to policies and processes, we need to be thinking about the customer journey.
Exactly.
Right. And I see more efforts going towards there, but you know, it's something that I think is being worked on, and I would like to see it expedited. Everything that you're saying, like, could be done in 5 minutes.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. You can get your transaction.
Now, is that a good thing or a bad thing, though?
All right.
We don't know, right? Because sometimes when there's these financial decisions and corporate decisions, if the administrative burden is not too high, then you might have too many transactions that are not optimal. So sometimes, as a protection mechanism, the administrative burden is slightly higher, and you see that a lot in the States as well, like filing for unemployment insurance. Right. It could be much easier. The economy is not doing well. You need to file for unemployment insurance. The process could be just one check. You know, click something. I'm unemployed. This was my last employer, and they send you a check. But they actually add a couple of steps, so not everybody utilizes it. Right. So there's a balance when it comes to administrative burden, right? Because one of the things that I think is a concern is you don't want everybody to open up a business, and they have no idea how to run a business, right? So you need some sort of oversight, because starting a business requires a lot of capital, which goes back to financial planning and all of these things, right?
So while going, while looking at your portfolio, your Instagram account, I've seen one topic that you covered recently, a topic that is, I think, got a lot of traction, got a lot of people talking, and I think I just want to bring it up here, which is the Aman al-Wadifi.
Yes.
Exactly. Just for you to kind of, you know, just reiterate, and how did you basically go about breaking down al-Aman al-Wadifi and basically its impact in the economy?
Yeah. So every established economy needs a social safety net, because life happens. We've seen it with COVID. We've seen, you know, business cycles happen from economics perspective, and the free market idea, free market economists are like, hey, no government intervention. Let everybody do what's best for them. If I have a threat of losing my job, I'll just save more. And if I lose a job, then I'll tap into my savings. But the reality of it doesn't work that way, right? Because we don't know when recessions are going to happen, and I can't calculate effectively what my risk of unemployment is. So in this case, we need a social safety net, and I applaud the government for introducing this. The question now becomes, what are the policy levers that we should evaluate when introducing this policy, right? And when it comes to unemployment insurance, it's a calculus. You want to support people when bad things happen, but you don't want to support too much that they don't have an incentive to leave the system, right? So finding that is where all the levers are, right? And then that's the benefit side of it. The cost side of it is how to pay for it, right? And pretty much that's what I go through my video. What are the benefits and how to evaluate what benefits. So with benefits, you have to think about how much you're paying out.
Exactly.
If you're thinking about how much you're paying out, you have to think about what income are you replacing, for how long, who qualifies, right? So I go through those steps in my video.
I think definitely we're gonna kind of put the link of your video.
I'd appreciate
in
that.
in the description, so people.
Talk about something he worked on in US, I think, which is Econ Beats.
Oh yeah, Econ.
Okay.
Can
There you go.
I did my research and I saw that.
Yeah. So thank you for asking about my. So what I do is I try to find.
Really proud of you, man.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
really appreciate that.
Like they made it like as a.
There was an article here in Oman about it, and then it's an international program, Econ Beats is, and now we're pushing Econ Games as well.
Nice.
So I'll talk about both of those programs.
Okay.
So I'm a big music person. I love music, and I think music helps you retain information.
Definitely.
Helps you connect. Like I could hear songs from '94 and know exactly where I was.
Yeah.
So you build an emotional attachment.
Exactly.
So
I share the same apparently.
Oh yeah. I've never played an instrument, but I enjoy it, and if I could go back in life, I would have taken music lessons more seriously.
Nice.
But the challenge that I was finding in my econ classes is we're talking about a lot of terminology, right? Deficits, debts.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I'm a big believer that to make economics allow students to enjoy economics, you have to make it relatable. And so what I created is this assignment called Econ Beats, and their role is to take a popular song and remake the song into economic terms.
Wow.
Right? So they don't have to worry about the instrument aspect, but they have to worry about the lyrics, which is not an easy, right? If you've ever tried to write a song, this is difficult. Exactly, right?
Yeah.
But actually, the more difficult thing, students are talented. The rhyming, they didn't have an issue with, and the singing, they did an amazing job.
Yeah.
The issues that they faced were group work, project management, right? And I teach first-year students, second-year students mostly. And to me, that's what I loved about this assignment is they hated every minute of it. And it sounds really bad that I'm saying that my students hated every minute of this assignment as they were doing it.
Yeah.
But the end of the assignment is I rent out a big hall, and it's a theater.
Yeah.
Okay. And we play the videos.
Wow.
Right? And everybody's there. We invite the public. We have 200, 300 people show up to watch these things.
Wow.
And the students are so proud, right? It's a concert, right?
Yeah.
And they leave there and they're like, wow, we just went through a 16-week project. We accomplished this. And then, you could find these songs on YouTube if you want. Just search Econ Beats. But it's good quality stuff. And now I recycle it in my class. When I want to teach unemployment, I show the unemployment video that a student made. Yeah. And students connect to that. So this is, education innovation. How do you take something that is normally done and revamp it? And the other thing that right now is taking up a lot of my time and I'm really excited about is Econ Games. And Econ Games is this idea that if I were to tell you what does an economist do, most people have no idea what an economist would do, right? Yeah. In fact, when I majored in economics, the advice I got from a lot of people is don't go into economics because no one knows what to do with an economist. So my goal is to increase awareness of what economists do to students, but also to businesses.
Nice.
So what we did is we brought businesses in and we said, hey, our econ students are great data scientists, data analysts. What I want you to do is bring us your messiest, ugliest data, right? And let's give them 6 hours and see what sense they could make out of it, right? So we had a company come in. They deal with customer interactions at grocery stores. Yeah. They dropped a data set that had 10 million observations, right? So nothing that Excel can handle, right? Yeah. And told students, hey, you have 6 hours. They got in groups, they came back, and they pitched ideas based on this data. Wow. Businesses now are like, oh, now we see what economists do.
Yeah.
But most importantly, the students see what they can do.
Exactly.
So we're getting more interest in economics because people believe economics is this abstract, let's talk about money, let's talk about debt deficit, but really it's more than that. It's about decision making.
Exactly. Is this an undergrad program or?
Right now it's an undergrad program. We're expanding it. We started with one school, Northern Kentucky University. We moved on to 2. And last year we had 7 schools. My goal is to have it international. I would love an Omani team to be part of it. Right now, next year it's going to be online. So there's an opportunity. The cost is really low to participate. And next year we're actually doing 2 versions. We're doing a policy version and a business economics version.
Nice.
So we're going to have a policy maker come in, give us some data and say, here, go work with it, and the students will have to make sense of it. I'm
pretty sure Hilal now, considering that we should have taken a course. We should have taken a course.
I appreciate that. That means a lot to me.
Yeah, that would have been really, really awesome.
It's not too late. You could take my econ course.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all
exactly.
Online.
We definitely can do that. Maybe you can highlight to the viewers the kind of programs probably that they can reach out to, where they can find them.
Perfect. So right now, my biggest mission is to build my YouTube page. It's a challenge that I took over during this COVID situation. And really, my objective is to find new ways to engage people in an online format.
Nice.
So I'm spending a lot of time trying to learn how to edit, how to tell stories and animations. And so my YouTube channel is Dr.Abdullah Al-Bahrani. Okay, yes, put it up there. It's up here. And what I'm doing is I'm uploading all the videos that my students are going to be watching.
Nice.
So the only difference between somebody that just goes through my lessons on YouTube versus somebody that's in my class is people in my class actually have assignments, have projects to do. But as far as content and knowledge, you will have all of that. The other thing that is also available is I've put my calendar online. So anybody that wants to reach out, watches the video, has a question, just sign up for a meeting. You get 30 minutes to talk to me.
Perfect. Yes. This was amazing.
We're done,
Professor.
Exactly. That was quick.
Yeah, I mean, if you have anything that you would like actually to go through, we don't have a problem. We're just kind of being considerate about your time. If you.
Oh no, I appreciate you. The main thing that I want to highlight is. The efforts, the creatives, the things that you all are doing. And there's a lot of people in Oman that are pushing these this content. I applaud you for doing that.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
I'm honored that you reached out to me.
This
is a great product.
Exactly. We actually would like to have you even more if we have the chance, in future, maybe down the line.
And I'm a big believer that relationships are long-term relationships. So I know that we'll continue to work together, to communicate. But I believe my role is to help mentor the future generation. Relatively speaking, I'm still young, but I've gained experience that I think I could pass on. So if there's anything that I could assist you or your audience with, please don't hesitate.
Definitely.
If you're studying in the United States and you're looking for an advisor, a mentor, reach out. That is my role.
I'm sure Hilal will consider now. Exactly. Much appreciation, Professor. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Sure.